Joji. This is my second journal in English, and today is Saturday, February 10th in 2018. I'm smiling because I'm very happy. Last week I recorded my first journal and it did make me very happy to record it, but I didn't know whether it would mean a lot of work, whether people would actually watch it or like it. And I have received so many fantastic and wonderful, kind comments about it that I have been actually thinking a week of doing it again. So that's been very appreciated, and I thank you all so much if you left a comment and if you didn't. And so here I am, my second journal. I know I also said that my English wasn't good enough to record, but I know I can make myself understood with my English. It's just that sometimes I feel that I'm so much eloquent in my own language, like I can explain things better and I go deeper than just using the basic English words that could describe something. But yeah, I just compensate by talking more in English. Anyway, today is very hot again. It's been very dry. We haven't had much rain this summer. Temperatures are always around 30 degrees Celsius and above. So yeah, that's a bit tiring. And even though I enjoy summer and the calm pace, that means that kids don't have to go to school and we don't have to go anywhere. We just stay here in the summer house. I still feel very hot. And yeah, that's been hard. Today we have a full house here. We're still at the summer house for another week or so. My mother is here and my parents-in-law are also here. The kids are here. The husband is here, so there might be noises. There might be people coming through the door to ask me where stuff is. So I apologize if I have to stop this video. Otherwise, we'll try to just make it work without interruptions. So yeah, it's been an interesting week with work and with knitting. I haven't made a lot of progress I don't have a lot of finished objects, but I have many exciting things to show you and talk about. So first I'll start with my works in progress. And if you remember, I showed you this cardigan last week. It's my Woolfolk cardigan made out of their Tynd yarn. And many of you were surprised or interested in the fact that I knit with straight needles. So I thought I would talk about that. The way my mother and my grandma taught me how to knit is the way that many European families knit or women knit. So what I do is I put my right needle under my armpit, and then my left hand needle can move, and I'm just a bit quicker that way. I still wouldn't say that I'm a fast knitter, but what happens is that for me, knitting and purling are equally difficult. It's not like purling is any more difficult than knitting. So I don't mind actually purling at all. And when I find that when I have to knit for long stretches, this position of knitting is much more comfortable. I don't get hand pain or wrist pain because the weight of my knitting is usually held by my armpit. So that's how I do it. Of course, that means that whenever I want to knit something that's knitting the round, I can't, of course. I have to use circular needles, but I'm a bit slower with those, especially if I have to purl. But that's all right. And regarding length, as you can see, they are quite long. They are actually longer than my shoulder span. These are 40 centimeters or 16-inch long needles, and they are very hard to find. Actually, brands like Signature Needles don't have this length. They only have them in the 14-inch or 35 centimeters. So I have done some research over the years. I always try to find where to buy my straight needles, and the country that has the most variety is usually the UK. I suppose that's because many English knitters still knit with this method. So I will include a link. I hope I will include a couple of links from a couple of shops that sell these needles that I'm using here, in case you're interested in trying a pair. These are Knit Pro Zings. They make them in this length, and I have tried many different types of needles, straight needles, and I basically can knit with anything. If you give me 2 chopsticks, I'll just knit with those. But this brand is really good, and I'm surprised because they're relatively new. They are not like your vintage grandma knitting needle, but they're very, very good for a straight needle. And yes, they are bent, of course, and that's normal. That happens with every knitting needle I've ever had, except for those wooden ones which just break, and that's very sad. And I also have, this is how I store my straight needles. As you can see, I have them in all models. The bad thing about straight needles is that you actually end up losing always one of the pair. So I have a lot of mismatched needles, and as you can see, these shorter ones are the 14-inch ones, which I can also use, but they are not long enough to fit properly under my armpit, so I kind of have to stick them there. They're okay. They're not so bad, but I prefer the longer ones. Anyway, that's how I knit. And then, yeah, I have one new project. Hold on. I dropped my ball of yarn. I have been knitting socks constantly for several years now. I always have a pair of socks on the needle. I like to knit everywhere, so I find that bringing a sweater project or a shawl project to a friend's meeting or a dinner, it's like people will notice you're knitting more than if you're just knitting something smaller. So if I want to bring my knitting to a social gathering, I'm probably going to bring a smaller project like a hat or a pair of socks. And it's very hot here, so we don't wear that many hats, but we always wear socks. So yeah, I always have a pair on my needles, and I just finished a pair that I can't show you because they're for a publication, but that means that I got to cast on a new pair. So I'm just in the process of casting on, but this is technically a work in progress, and I'm using this. Look at that. I'm using sparkly yarn. This is Shimmer by Skein. By Skein yarn, one of my favorite dyers. Shimmer is 75% merino, 20% nylon, 5% stellina, and it comes with 440 yards per skein. And my colorway is called Crema. Crema, which is like a natural, beautiful natural color yarn. So to cast on, I always use a long tail cast on, and I did find out many times that my cast on was a bit tight, or too tight to pull up my socks or to put my foot through them. Many times I had to redo the cast on until my friend Hygge taught me this trick. So an alternative to this would be to use a larger needle to cast on your stitches, but I'm super lazy. I always have the same needle, like waiting to knit my next pair of socks, and I don't want to go find a bigger one or a larger one to cast on. So what she taught me to do is to use both needles to cast on, and then when you're done, you just slip one off, and then you have a looser cast on, because Hygge is very clever. And she's a fabulous sock designer too. So for those I had initially the idea of I was going to do this complex cable pattern. I wanted, since the yarn itself allows me to show a more complex patterning, then I thought, okay, I'm going to do cables or cables and lace. But then I want to include this pattern in a collection that it's my dream that will happen one day. When I finish all my collaborations, I'll be able to write my own collection of patterns. And I wanted the pattern that's easy to follow, and that's not another pattern that you have to like sit down and read charts for. So what I've been thinking this morning, it would be great to hear your input about this subject, is that I'm going to possibly stripe that Crema colorway with this gray. This is Miss Babs, another of my favorite companies. Miss Babs Yummy 2-ply in the colorway Lycan or something like that. Let's say Lycan. Let's agree that it says Lycan here. And yeah, so I'm thinking that, you know how I love those patterns, like I included in my 3-color cashmere coat, where we have stripes and some lace and some stripes and some lace. And even though it looks really fun and more complicated, you know that it's actually a very easy pattern. You're just using colors to add interest to a pattern. So I'm thinking that what I'll do is I'll just stripe my socks a little bit and add some lace band, or so, but since this yarn is just merino and this one has nylon, I think that I'll keep the heels and toes with this base that has the nylon content, and then I'll use this one in other parts of the socks that won't wear out so much. Yeah, this is 100% superwash merino and 400 yards. So yeah, I think that's what I'll do. You guys can let me know how much you enjoy knitting really lovely patterned socks versus something a bit easier. It would still have some lace and stripes, but it would be a bit easier to follow. One day I'll have the time to make both. Yes. And then my other work in progress, it's a new one. Just let me get a sip of my coffee. My other work in progress, I'm very excited about it, and I showed you the yarn last time. I have a knitting elf that sometimes helps me with my knitting. That knitting elf is my mother, and she has been helping me knit many rows of this. My mother, who's staying with us here for the summer, she really enjoys boring knitting. So whenever you would think of long stretches of garter stitch or sleeves or whatever is really easy with no shaping, things that probably would get me very bored. She loves them. She's just, oh, can I work on that? Can I do that for you? She's the best. So I wrote out the instructions for this bit, and I started, I made the beginning of it to get her into like understanding how things were going to grow, and she's been working on most of this. So this is my fading point wrap that I'm designing, that I showed you the yarn last time. That's so nice to see it on the screen. So this is going to be a rectangular piece, very big, and it starts, it's made into two pieces that start on both ends and grow towards the middle. And I'm using a fade kit that Aimée dyed for me. And this first color that I used is called Undergrowth, and now we have already faded into the second colorway that's called Victorian Mauve. And let me show you, I have my other colors here behind the screen. Sorry that I come up close. This third color is called Souvenir. And then we have La Belle Époque. And the last one is Primrose. Yes, so I'm going to start with, in both ends it's going to be dark, and then it's going to get lighter as we make progress towards the center. And it's going to have those lace insertions that you saw. Yeah, if we will do like a fade band and then a lace insertion in the second color, and then we'll make it grow like that. So it's growing really quickly because Mom has been super with it, and yeah, I've been writing the pattern while she's doing that. We're both enjoying the project. I work on it every now and then because I also want to enjoy the yarn. So it's been another shared project that we both are enjoying greatly. So that's that's my last work in progress for this week. I have some new plans, but also I have a couple of finished objects that I want to show you. I finished my Beachgrass socks. Sorry, let me get rid of those notifications. Okay, I finished my Beachgrass socks. I was working on these last time. This is my own pattern called Beachgrass socks. And this is the second sample that I made using that pattern. I used Life in the Long Grass fine sock in the colorway Elyssian. So the original pattern was made using the same base, but in the colorway Beachgrass. These socks, I don't know who they're going to be but I'm probably going to save them for a birthday present for someone that I like. I'm very happy with them. The yarn is super soft, and I like that it has so many color variations. Very pleased with the results. And also I have a second pair of socks to show you, and this is an older finished object, but it's so cute that I wanted to share it with you. So these socks are made out of self-striping yarn from the Cozy Knitter. She's a dyer in Canada, and her specialty are self-striping yarns. And we met at the Edmonton retreat I was teaching at last year, and Christina gifted me a ball of this beautiful yarn. I just adored the yarn so much, the color so much, that I cast on immediately as soon as she gave it to me. Someone, Diane, gifted me some needles so that I could just cast on that very moment. And I made this pair of socks that I gifted to my mother for Christmas. So they're just a 1x1 ribbing. Also, I'm so unhappy with my tension for ribbing, but there's not much that I can do. I've been trying to make it look more even. Even here, it does look uneven. It's not the yarn and it's not the needle. It's the knitter. I'm just bad for having good tension with ribbing. Who cares? I care. So it has a heel flap, and the kit came with a mini skein that I use for the cuffs, for the heel and for the toe in this golden color, and then the main ball of yarn was used for the rest of the sock. The colorway is called Hygge, Hygge, and yeah, my mom loved them. Sorry, someone just entered, so I had to stop the video, but we'll continue. So I was about to say that I like self-striping yarns because with the color changes, you get this hint on like where to start your heels, where to start your toes, and then you can have both socks matching really well as long as you preserve those color changes. So I'm very pleased with this. I also like about this yarn that it's thicker than many sock yarns that I've used, so it feels almost like a sport weight, which I know I enjoyed better working on them, but also my mother gets really cold feet, so she also appreciates the extra warmth. All right, so what am I planning? I'm planning to cast on, or to swatch for today, a new cardigan design. So this cardigan hopefully will also be included in that one day collection, but first I'm going to be taking part in Curious Handmaid's retreat this upcoming May. It's happening in Bath in the UK, and yes, so I would like to bring a pattern for my students there to work on if they want. So Helen Stewart from Curious Handmaid helped me pick the yarn that would be nice to have featured at the retreat. So I picked this Shibui, and I'm going to be using two different qualities from Shibui. I'm going to be using Cima and Silk Cloud held together to achieve a fingering weight gauge. Hopefully, I still haven't swatched, so I'm not sure what needles I'm going to use, but I wound this up this morning before recording. This is one skein of the Silk Cloud, and this is one skein of Cima, and these are going to be knit together. Cima is 70% super baby alpaca and 30% fine merino, so that's very luxurious. and this yarn has 328 yards in 50 grams. So that means that it's not fingering weight, it's much finer, but it's also not lace weight. It's in between both. So I think that if I add a lace weight strand, that's the silk cloud, and I can achieve a fingering weight. So the silk cloud is 60% mohair and 40% silk. And these are both in the colorway mineral, which is this gray lilac tone. I'm excited. I like that Shibui has, they always like to feature patterns where knitters can hold different qualities that they carry together, and that they have similar color cards. How do you call them? Color cards, where you can see all the colorways of yarn. Okay, so for all their different qualities, their colorways are the same. So you can find mineral in Cima and Silk Cloud, but also you can find all of the other colorways to match. So you can easily pair those. And that's nice. So I'm excited about that. I still have to swatch and see how it will work. But I'm thinking of a top-down cardigan. So it's going to start here at the shoulders, and it's going to be square without a lot of shaping, a bit boxy, and it's going to have a textured pattern. It's going to have this sort of basket weave pattern all over the body, and then I'm thinking to add like a collar, like a shawl collar to the front, but it should be worn like with the fronts open, not overlapping or buttoning, like sort of like a kimono style cardigan. That's what I'm thinking about. So I like to wear a lot of black and like black tops, and I'm picturing myself wearing that on my black clothes, like open. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yes. And then yeah, one of the things that many of you mentioned when you left comments for the journal is that you like to see how things were from a designer's perspective. So that's very nice, because that's the way I like to see it. But I will try not to make this journal too knitter oriented, like not put myself in the knitter's place all the time. I will try to remember to always share with you some of the behind the scenes thought processes, so that I can always share with you that designer's perspective thing. I hope I can keep that up. So regarding that, I thought it would be cool to show you how I work my stitch patterns for some of these designs. So I was telling you that I'm thinking of a basket weave kind of pattern for that cardigan, and last week I showed you that I was using this chart for my black cardigan in process. So what I do is when I picture a design in my mind, I always think of, like in this case, I wanted a lace band, or like a lace band running down the front, or in the new cardigan idea, I know that I want a basket weave design. So if it's a pattern that I've never worked before, or I want to get inspiration from somewhere, I usually look through my stitch pattern books. I have several of them, and I don't have them all here with me, but I have 2 of them. So these are some of the most used books around here in my house. This is a Treasury of Knitting Patterns by Barbara Walker, and there are 4 of them. These were a gift from my dear friend Yael. She came to visit me in Argentina once, and she said, "What stitch pattern books do you use?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't use any." I just browse the internet searching for stitch pattern websites, and she said, "No, you need to have these books." So she was amazing, and she bought all of them, excuse me, for me, and I have honored them. I use them all the time, and yeah. So I'm gonna show you, for example, in these books, you don't have charts. So you get a photo of the stitch pattern, and then you get the description, like the written description of the pattern that sometimes works for flat knitting. Most of the time these are written for flat knitting, but sometimes you have to translate that into circular knitting, and then these instructions won't work because this is written for a right side row and a wrong side row, and you know that when you knit in the round, you're just knitting all right side rows. So what I do is I read from these instructions, and I try to absorb what Barbara Walker is describing and how this stitch count works, and many times I end up modifying that to fit my needs. So sometimes I would tweak stitch patterns to make it 14 stitches instead of 12, or so I add some stitches in the middle or on the edges. And also many times what I do, if I think that it might help me in the future, is, for example, this lace pattern here was very hard for me to visualize as I was reading the written instructions. So what I do is I draw a chart on the book if I think that I might come back to this pattern sometime. So then, if I'm not doing that on the book, if I'm tweaking the pattern to fit my needs for my new design, I usually just chart it either on a piece of paper, or I go directly to the software that I use for charting. I know that there are charting software that many designers use, like Stitch Mastery, I think it's one. But I like to draw my own lines, and I like to make the squares the size I want. I want to make my symbols whatever I want them to. I always include a legend in my patterns, and I just like the control that I get from just drawing my own stuff with my computer. So I use CorelDRAW for my charts, which is similar to Adobe Illustrator. And then, so for example, in this case, let's say I started drawing the right lace, and then I made all these squares, I made all the eyelets, and then I numbered all my rows, and then I need to make the left lace. So I just tell my software to mirror my lace and to duplicate it in a mirror way. So now I get my left lace, and in that way I can get both sides of my sweater to look symmetrical and not like both the same. I want them mirrored, not the same. So I usually print out that chart as soon as I finish it. Many times it has mistakes, or I haven't compensated all the yarn overs with decreases, or there's always something wrong about these charts. So I might make notes for myself so that when I write the final pattern, I can go back and make those corrections. And then when I finally write the pattern for publication, I will take these charts that I drew, and I will write all the written instructions for those knitters who can't or who can read charts or just find it easier to knit from written directions. So for me, it's easier to draw and then write from that drawing than write the instructions and then draw from those instructions, if that makes sense at all. So yeah, that's a bit of the behind the scenes. I recommend that if you're interested in designing and if you don't have already any stitch pattern books, I recommend that you get these, the first one and maybe the second one. I don't find the third and fourth ones so useful because they have more sort of like panel type of stitch patterns, more complex stuff, but they are really nice to have to complete your collection. I'll try to include some links to that too. Yeah. So lastly, I wanted to talk to you about something very exciting that happened this week. So in March 1st, Vera Valimaki and I are publishing our 5th edition of Interpretations. Interpretations is a book that we write together each year. Each year we get together and come up with 6 designs each, and then we get together to photo shoot them. And this is our 5th anniversary. We have been working together successfully for 5 years, which I think it's a big deal because it's hard to find someone that you can work so happily with. So I'm very grateful to have this amazing partner. And so our books are available usually in 2 forms. So you can buy the ebook from Ravelry that you would be buying that directly from us. But that option is not available until the day we upload the ebook to Ravelry. So that will be on March 1st. And then you can also buy the print book, the physical book, if you like to have it in your bookshelf. And we have the most amazing publishers. Pom Pom Magazine is publishing our books every year. And so they have put up a pre-order for our book. So I only printed the cover for you to see. This is our 5th volume of Interpretations. So Pom Pom has put up a pre-order. The books won't ship until March. But you can already order your copy and make sure that it's shipped to you as soon as we publish things on Ravelry. So I will include a link to that website here also in the journal notes in case you want to check it out. It includes 12 patterns, as I said. 6 are designed by me and 6 are designed by Vera, and I can tell you that my patterns are 4 sweaters and 2 shawls. That's all the sneak peeks that I can share with you, but we will start sharing more images possibly in a week or so on Instagram. So that's very exciting, and I appreciate that you take a look. And so to close this journal, I wanted to thank especially the grocery girls, because I know many of you come to this journal because when you watch the grocery girls, sometimes it appears in the sidebar of your screen, so that's very nice of them. I think YouTube does that, but yeah. Thanks Tracy and Jody for always being so kind to me and for all the lovely things you say that I absolutely do not deserve. And yes, I think this is too long, but I'd like to share with you some of the nice podcasts that I have been enjoying during the last few years. Maybe I'll save that for the next journal. So I hope you have a great weekend and next week, and I'll try to do this again sometime soon. Bye.